But it's an honor to be here and to be speaking and sharing my small slice and what I am committed my life to work on, which are kids in the juvenile justice system here in America. And in fact, I work very, very locally here in the Bay Area, in Santa Clara and in San Mateo County. And so I hope to spend a little bit of a time grounding you in the realities of this beautiful place those of you who are visiting from are in, and the darker side, and what's happening in this amazing place of entrepreneurship and creation and innovation, and yet the huge issues and challenges we face right here locally with juvenile justice. And I thought to do that, I would start very personally with my own personal story. So as I speak today, think of it like a buffet. Take what you like and leave the rest. But on a personal note, I was raised in a very conservative military family. My dad is a Vietnam veteran, an Air Force Academy person. Both of my grandfathers fought in World War II. One of my grandfathers was in a Nazi concentration camp for 2 years. And so growing up, it was very ingrained in me: justice, law, order, discipline, responsibility, accountability. I didn't have a whole lot of compassion for people who didn't follow the law or do things the way that my family did. And that was heightened when I was a high school student and my closest friend was raped pretty violently. And I decided I was going to go to law school and I was going to become a prosecuting attorney and I was going to put people in jail and I was going to make the world a safer place. And I went to college, played basketball, and had a wonderful professor who saw something in me and decided that he wanted me to do my research on the prison industrial complex in America, and really pushed me to think about issues of racism and class in our country. And so I went off to law school at Northwestern in Chicago and was pretty confused about what I wanted to do with my life. And I was asked to volunteer. It was before the days of the internet, so volunteering, there was like a little sign in a quad: come teach kids about the law in juvenile hall. And this was in the 90s, early 90s in Cook County, which was at the time in America when we talked about our young people as super predators. And it was very violent, very dangerous. And I said yes for very, very selfish reasons. I thought it would look good on my resume. So I went into juvenile hall. They gave me a slip of paper that had the Fourth Amendment on it, which is a very difficult amendment to teach because it's all about the right to be free from unreasonable searches and seizures from police. Very hot topic back then also, as it is today. And no training. So a piece of paper, go to the maximum security unit. You're going to work with all the young men who are there for rape, murder, and teach them about the Fourth Amendment. And so my first day, I remember it so vividly, being inside this huge complex and these young men walking in, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm a white girl from the suburbs. I have no right being here. I have nothing to offer. This was a really bad idea. And I pretty much told them that. And then I said, I played college basketball. How about if we talk about that instead? Because it was the days of Michael Jordan, which famous basketball right down the road. And so the young men started talking and we laughed. And over the 10 weeks, they taught me so much more than I could ever teach them. And I realized that behind their faces and their voices were young men. And often, their statements to me would always start with this: if only. If only someone had cared about me. If only I had known how much trouble I could get into, I wouldn't be here. And I saw and heard over and over and over again their life stories. And so as I started teaching them about the law and the legal system and what were their rights, what were their responsibilities, what was happening in court, who was this person, the court reporter, they didn't have a name for it. They did have a lawyer. It's not somebody who failed law school, which is what they would often think. And all of a sudden I found rival gangs communicating to each other, because they mixed them in Cook County at the time, and giving each other advice. Don't take this L train home. My boys are making a play for territory. Don't go through this park. And I stepped back and I said, how is this happening? And they said to me, we realized for the first time we have something in common. We're all dealing with the same stuff. We're all dealing with the legal system we don't understand and that we feel oppressed by. And so the law became this beautiful vehicle to bring very different groups of people together to talk and to try to understand and to start to build an understanding of what the world was like. Fast forward, I left. I did not like the cold winters in Chicago, so I transferred out to Stanford where I finished my law degree. And they didn't have anything similar, so I just cold called our juvenile hall in Santa Clara, which is one of the largest facilities in the state. And history teacher happened to answer the phone that day. And I said, can I come teach your kids about the law? He said, sure. So I went in, and by the end of my law school career, had a lot of law students teaching young people about the legal system. And what we were finding was that they were participating in their court hearings. They were working better with their lawyers. They were able to understand what was happening to them. And their voices also always said to me, if only. So I put them in focus groups and said, what can I do to prevent other kids from ending up like you? And they told me 3 things. You need to teach kids about the law. You need to give us access to somebody who cares about us and give us a chance. Because once we're labeled as a delinquent, everybody writes us off and doesn't see us for who we really, truly are. And so that is what I decided to do. And I stepped back, but I said to them, can I do this? As a person, a white woman, can I do this? Can I be entrusted with this idea? And this young man, they sat and they thought about it. And this young man said to me something really profound that's always stayed with me. He said, look, as long as you deeply listen and you care, we don't care what package you come in. Go do something about this. And for me, that's become a really big part of our work at FLY, is how do we have deep listening, deep empathy? How do we care in a way that's authentic and real and genuine? How do we look for strengths and potentials in everybody that we work with? How do we see our young people as resources and co-creators and people who have so much to offer us? You know, I really resonated with what was said earlier about how our young people have wonderful ideas, and we need to also figure out how to bound them, how to think about them, how to articulate them, how to work with them. And these young men were brilliant and are brilliant. And their ideas were absolutely backed up by research. They were backed up by evidence about what really works. They know what they need, but so often we don't listen to them. So at FLY today, what we do is we work with these kids in the juvenile justice system, and we provide a legal education class. We teach kids about what are their rights and responsibilities under the criminal law. How does the 3 strikes law apply to kids? How do gang laws apply to kids? What does it mean? What happens when you go to court? What does the lawyer do? And we build empathy on all sides. We bring in police officers, probation officers, district attorneys, public defenders to our classes so they can experience our young people in a different light. Often our system partners only see our young people in their darkest moments. They don't get to see them in the moments when they have so much to offer. And so we want them to have that experience. Often our young people don't have a lot of empathy for the people in the criminal justice system. And sometimes that empathy can make a big difference as well. So we do things together. We do mock trials together to give both sides an experience of what it's like. And we really use the law program as a wide net. We look a lot at the research about change management and pre-contemplation, the idea that we might not all be ready for change at the same time. How do we help inspire young people to want to change, but know that change is going to happen on their own timeline? And then at the end of that class, we look at the young people who are thinking about changing, maybe just a little bit, but don't have the support system be successful. And we provide them with deep, intensive case management and support to help them discover and unleash their true potential and their true strengths. Our young people have incredible strengths, but we often don't look at it that way. And it's our job to help them identify those strengths and then go with it. And what we've been able to do over the years in Santa Clara and San Mateo counties have a significant impact. We see during the course of the program, over 80% of our kids consistently are not reoffending, and we work with pretty high-risk kids that are really active. We see that our kids are reporting they're building the skills that they need to be successful. They've identified and found hope, strengths, courage, and the ability to find a new path and a new way. And that's what we're really focused on at FLY. And we do this for less than 1/10 of the cost of incarceration. To ground you a little bit in the realities of the Silicon Valley, from San Francisco down to Gilroy, which is about an 1.5 to 2-hour stretch, we're arresting about 12,000 kids a year. Right now, between 4 facilities, just on one side, everybody uses different language for what's the Bay Area, what's the Silicon Valley, but if you think of like Silicon Valley and where the Facebooks and the Googles and the Yahoos of the world are, tonight we have about 375 kids that are incarcerated just in this area. And for each kid that's incarcerated, on average, locally, we're spending over $500 per kid per night. That's almost $200,000 per kid per year in the Silicon Valley. And we know from the research that being incarcerated makes you much more likely to reoffend and recidivate. And no matter how our best run institutions are still not the places that are going to solve this problem. And this is a huge issue right here in the Silicon Valley. What I can also tell you is there's huge issues of disproportionate minority confinement and contact and inherent and intrinsic biases within our system. For the last, I've been doing this work now for 17 years, and for the last 10 years in the Silicon Valley, we've been really focused on disproportionate minority contact. And what we've seen is in the last 10 years, the reduction of kids that are incarcerated has been significant. It's been reduced by half, for example, in Santa Clara County. But the numbers of kids who are incarcerated who are kids of color has not changed. It is still 70 to 80% of those kids that are incarcerated are kids of color. If you're a black young person here in the Silicon Valley, 10 times greater chance of being incarcerated than a white person. And that's here. And so I think that I loved your comments at the beginning, Amy, about please don't take a lot of what we're doing, because there's a lot that we're doing really, really wrong, and that we still need to be figuring out how to do. And so I think a couple of things that I hope my experience will offer to you or that you can take with you is, one, that the problems are everywhere, which we know. Two, that the legal system, or understanding the rule of law as it exists, or understanding the legal dynamics that young people are in, I have found in my experience is a profound way to get conversations started between young people, a profound way to help bring disparate groups of people together, which I think can be incredibly powerful. I will also say that I've really found and continue to find how important it is that we use our young people as the champions of our best ideas and what really works and what should work and what can make a difference. Our program, when we started Flight, started off predominantly just as a law program, and kids kept re-enrolling in the course. And so I stepped back and said, this isn't working, guys. We don't have room for all of you. What are we going to do about this? And so we went to the woods for 3 days. And 18 young boys and girls designed the case management program that we now run. That's been incredibly effective. And they help, we have a peer component where they come back a second or a third year to help mentor and nurture their younger peers. So really looking at what their ideas are and then going out and putting the research around it to back it up, which we have found in order to be funded by foundations, to be funded by individual donors. That's been a really important point for us, is to be able to talk about what's the research, the science behind what it is that we're doing. And I think along those lines, I would also say how important it is to blend the head and the heart is a big lesson that we've gotten at Fly. Let me be clear, we love our kids fiercely. And we see every young man and woman who walks into our doors or that we meet in an institution as having incredible strengths and abilities. And it's not about us saving them at all. It's about us giving them the opportunity to save themselves and to find the strengths that they've had all along. They aren't strengths that we feel we need to give them. And we've also learned we have to love our kids in ways that are smart and sustainable. We've been working with the National Foundation to get really crystal clear on how to define what it is that we're doing, how to repeat it, how to scale it. We are hoping and planning now to launch in Oakland in the fall, where the leading cause of death for 15 to 20-year-olds in that city is homicide. And it's the second most violent city in the United States, and that's right here, again, in the Silicon Valley. But what we know is that we have to be super strategic about how we love our young people. We had a big fundraiser recently, and one of our young men, Tony, spoke. And afterwards, we took him out to breakfast, and we were debriefing the experience and talking about what it felt like to see all these people who were there because they wanted to cheer for him. And he said, hey, the other day I was at the office, and I was at the printer, and I saw these theory of change documents printed out that talked all about, dosage and interactions with us and how often you were seeing us and what it was. Is that what y'all are doing to us? I said, yes, Tony, that's kind of what, that is so great. And he felt so empowered, and we had this deep conversation about how much it meant to him that we cared enough to try to capture what it was that we were doing in a way that we could repeat it for the Tonys of the world in other cities or in other places. And that was a really meaningful conversation. I think the other piece that I would say we've learned is how important it is to be strength finders. And at Fly, we really try to take that belief and philosophy, not just with our young people, but with the systems that we work in. We have challenges with our systems, we have frustration with our systems, and we try to find what are the strengths that we can magnify. How can we be a part of the solution? We had a situation a number of years ago where our young people were running from a locked facility repeatedly. And so the probation department came and asked us to teach the young people how to do research and do focus groups, and they came up with the ideas of what changes should be made to the institution so that the young people wouldn't feel the need to run. And they were incredibly successful. But it was an example for us of we believe in system reform. There's ways to go about it, and for us, one way we try really hard is from the inside out, where we get invited into the system and our young people then can help bring a voice to what it is that needs to be changed. And I think the last piece that I will end with for me that is so powerful and profound that I know Larry had mentioned this morning is the power of hope. You know, most kids, when they come to fly, when we ask them, where do you see yourselves when you're 18? The most common answer we'll hear, very matter-of-factly, will be, well, I'll be in prison or I'll be dead. That's not okay on our watch. And if we don't have hope, we don't have much. All the life skills and mentoring and everything else we can do isn't going to do much. And I know that the research on change says that often as human beings, the most common reason we fail at changing our behavior is because deep down inside, we don't believe we'll be successful. And our system can reinforce those beliefs with how our young people are treated. And so it's our job to help them ignite their hope and believe deeply that they can be successful. And sometimes if they're in a dark place and they don't have the energy to believe in it for themselves, we've got to believe it enough for both of us. And then they can pick it up and run with it, which they often do. The human spirit is incredibly resilient, and our young people are incredible teachers and incredible assets and have so much to offer. And when I think back to those young men who trusted me with their great idea of how to change juvenile justice, I'm profoundly grateful that I have the opportunity to do this work. It feels like an incredible privilege and an honor, and I'm very grateful to have met all of you, and thank you so much for caring so deeply about our young people across the world. Thank you very much.